In a packed Boston conference hall, a founder and pediatric advocate, a Black woman, delivers a powerful keynote as her five-year-old sons perform on stage, their voices ringing with innocence. Her ex-husband, a prominent lawyer, freezes in the audience, stunned to see the sons he never knew, each a mirror of himself. Once a celebrated professor, she endured betrayal, a public smear campaign branding her unstable, and a brutal divorce that left her with nothing but resolve. Facing a grueling pregnancy alone, near-death childbirth, and relentless media scrutiny, she rose from the ashes to build a movement for single mothers. Will this moment rewrite their story or deepen old wounds? Subscribe now for our latest stories and share where you're tuning in from. What secrets will unravel, and how will 5 small stars change everything? Stay to find out. The Manhattan skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Claire Dawson's penthouse, constellation of ambition that once felt like hers. At 34, she stood in the kitchen, her silhouette sharp against the marble counter, stirring a pot of marinara that had gone cold. The clock ticked past 9, each second a quiet accusation. Ethan, her husband, had promised to be home by 7. Claire's fingers tightened around the wooden spoon, her nails catching the grain. She wore a silk blouse, the same shade of burgundy she'd worn when they first met, hoping it might summon the man who once looked at her like she was his universe. Now the apartment felt like a museum, polished, pristine, but hollow. She crossed to the living room, her bare feet silent on the hardwood, and picked up a framed photo from the mantel. Their wedding day, Claire radiant in ivory, Ethan grinning, his arms slung around her with a possessiveness that felt like love back then. They'd met in a Harlem bookstore, debating James Baldwin's Fire until the shop closed. She was a literature professor at Columbia, he a law student with dreams bigger than the city. Their nights were filled with cheap wine, dog-eared novels, and plans for a life where her words and his justice would change the world. When Ethan's career demanded she pause hers, Claire left teaching, believing their shared vision was worth it. Now that vision was a ghost. The phone buzzed, jarring her. A text from Ethan. Running late. Don't wait up. No apology. No warmth. Claire's chest tightened, a familiar ache she'd tried to dismiss for months. His late nights had multiplied, his excuses sharper, his touch rarer. She'd chalked it up to stress. His law firm had just won a high-profile case, plastering his name across headlines. But doubt had taken root, its tendrils curling around her heart. She set the phone down and crossed to the bookshelf, pulling out a worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God. Inside, tucked between pages, was a letter Ethan wrote years ago, his handwriting jagged with passion. Claire, you're my anchor, my fire. We'll conquer everything together. She traced the ink, wondering when those words had stopped being true. The front door clicked open, and Ethan strode in, his tailored suit immaculate despite the hour. His eyes, once soft for her, were distracted, scanning his phone. You're still up, he said, not a question, his tone clipped. Claire folded the letter, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Dinner's cold. I made your favorite. He glanced at the kitchen, then back at his screen. I ate at the office. Big case. She nodded, swallowing the sting. You've been working a lot lately, he sighed, loosening his tie. That's the job, Claire. You knew that when you signed up. The words landed like a slap, but she held his gaze. I signed up for us, Ethan. Not this. He didn't respond, just moved to the bar cart, pouring a whiskey. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken truths. Claire's eyes caught a glint on his cufflink, a monogrammed J she didn't recognize. Her pulse quickened. New cufflinks? She asked, keeping her tone light. Ethan's hand paused, then he shrugged. Client gift. But his eyes flickered, a tell she'd learned to read in their early days. She stepped closer, her voice low. Ethan, what's going on? You're not here even when you are. He set the glass down hard, his jaw tightening. Don't start, Claire. I'm tired. The air crackled with tension. She wanted to let it go, to retreat to the safety of silence, but something snapped. I'm tired too, she said, her voice rising. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending this is still a marriage. Ethan's eyes narrowed, cold and unfamiliar. You want to talk about marriage? Fine. Maybe we're not working anymore. Maybe we're just done. The word hung between them, a blade. Claire's breath caught, but she didn't flinch. Is there someone else? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked away, and in that hesitation she knew. The next morning, Claire woke to an empty bed and a courier at the door, delivering divorce papers. Ethan had moved fast, his signature already scrawled on the dotted line. The terms were generous, half the penthouse's value, a lump sum, but they felt like a transaction, not a farewell. By noon, the first tabloid headline hit: Star lawyer seeks divorce, cites wife's instability. The lie was Ethan's shield, crafted with his media connections to protect his image. They painted Claire as erratic, a woman unhinged by his success. Her phone buzzed with messages from old colleagues, their pity sharper than the betrayal. She didn't cry. Not yet. Claire packed a single suitcase, her hands steady as she folded her favorite sweater, a gift from her late mother. She left the penthouse, its gleaming surfaces a reminder of a life that no longer fit. The drive to Brattleboro, Vermont, was a blur of highways and bare trees, the city's chaos fading into rolling hills. She'd chosen the town for its quiet, a place to disappear. The rental cottage was small, its wood floors creaking, its windows drafty, but it was hers. She stood at the sink, washing a single plate, when the reality hit. Ethan was gone. The man who'd vowed to conquer the world with her had chosen another. Juliet Harper, the senator's daughter, her name whispered in gossip columns Claire had ignored. That night, Claire sat on the cottage's porch, a blanket around her shoulders, the Vermont sky vast above her. The stars felt closer here, unfiltered by city lights. She thought of her parents, gone too soon, and the strength they'd instilled in her. Ethan's betrayal had cracked her world, but it hadn't broken her. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the steady rhythm of her heart. I'm still here, she whispered to the dark, and I'll start again. The wind carried her words, a vow to herself. Claire didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew she'd face it alone, with the same fire that had once lit her lectures and her love. She rose, stepping back into the cottage, the door closing softly behind her. The world outside could judge, could whisper, could forget her name. But Claire Dawson would not forget herself. Not now, not ever. The Vermont winter wrapped Claire Dawson's cottage in a shroud of frost, each morning greeting her with a brittle chill that seeped through the walls. 3 months had passed since she'd fled Manhattan, and the quiet of Brattleboro was both sanctuary and cage. At 34, Claire moved through her days like a ghost, her hands busy with unpacking, but her mind tethered to the betrayal that had uprooted her life. The divorce papers, Ethan's lies, the tabloid headlines. They lingered like shadows. Yet something new stirred within her, a faint unease she couldn't name. Her body felt heavy, her appetite gone, replaced by waves of nausea she blamed on grief. One gray afternoon, Claire stood in the local grocery store, clutching a basket of canned soup and bread. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the world tilted. Her vision blurred, the shelves spinning, and she crumpled to the linoleum floor, the basket clattering beside her. A cashier's shout pierced the fog, and soon Claire was in an ambulance, the siren's wail a distant echo. At the hospital, a keen-eyed doctor, her badge reading Dr. Ellis, guided Claire to an exam room. The ultrasound machine hummed, its screen flickering to life. Claire braced for bad news, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. But Dr. Ellis's voice was soft, almost reverent. You're pregnant, she said, then paused, her eyes widening. With 5 quintuplets, all boys. The words landed like stones in still water, rippling through Claire's core. 5 lives growing inside her, a miracle and a burden she hadn't dared imagine. Her mind flashed to a night months ago, Ethan's fleeting return to their penthouse, his apologies laced with desperation. They'd clung to each other in the dark, a final grasp at what was already lost. He'd left before dawn, and now, this. Claire's hands trembled as she stared at the grainy images, 5 tiny forms, their heartbeats a rapid, defiant rhythm. How? she whispered, though she knew the answer. Dr. Ellis offered a gentle smile. Sometimes life finds a way, even in the hardest moments. Back at the cottage, Claire sat on her narrow bed, the ultrasound printout in her lap. The silence of the house pressed against her, broken only by the creak of the radiator. She dialed Ethan's number, her heart pounding. When he answered, his voice was clipped, impatient. "What is it, Claire?" She took a breath, steadying herself. "I'm pregnant. Quintuplets? They're yours." The line went silent, then erupted with his fury. "That's impossible. You're lying to trap me. Say one word to anyone, and I'll bury you in court. You'll lose everything." The threat, backed by his legal prowess and the Harper family's influence, was a blade held to her throat. He hung up, leaving Claire staring at the phone, her resolve hardening. She wouldn't beg, not him, not anyone. Claire chose silence, not out of fear, but to shield the lives she now carried. She wouldn't let Ethan's denial or his threats define their future. The pregnancy was a gauntlet. Morning sickness left her curled on the bathroom floor, her strength sapped by the demands of 5 growing boys. Her ankles swelled, her back ached, and sleep became a memory. The cottage, once a refuge, felt like a cell, its walls closing in as winter deepened. Claire's savings dwindled, the divorce settlement barely covering rent and medical bills. She hid her condition, avoiding the curious gazes of neighbors, her world shrinking to the rhythm of doctors' visits and the flutter of life within her. One evening, as snow fell outside, Claire met Martha, the gray-haired widow next door, who knocked with a thermos of chamomile tea. "You look like you're carrying the world," Martha said, her eyes kind but sharp. Claire hesitated, then let her in, the warmth of company a rare comfort. Martha didn't pry, but her small axe, dropping off a loaf of bread, shoveling Claire's walkway, became a lifeline. Claire began to trust her, sharing bits of her story, though not the pregnancy. Martha listened, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm. As weeks passed, Claire's body became a map of endurance, each ache a testament to her resolve. She sat by the cottage's lone window, the ultrasound images spread before her, and began a journal. "To my boys," she wrote, her pen steady despite her fatigue. "I don't know what the world will give you, but I'll give you everything I have. You'll be enough, and so will I." She named them, whispering each name into the dark. Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, Sam. The names felt like promises, each one a star in the constellation of her future. Claire's isolation was her armor, but it was also her weight. She avoided phone calls from old friends, fearing their pity or questions. The tabloids had quieted, but Ethan's shadow loomed, his threat a constant hum in her mind. She researched high-risk pregnancies alone, her laptop screen glowing late into the night, pages open to preterm labor risks and NICU protocols. Fear gnawed at her, but so did determination. She wouldn't let these boys be a footnote in someone else's story, least of all Ethan's. One night, as a blizzard howled outside, Claire felt the first distinct kick, a tiny rebellion against her doubt. She pressed her hand to her belly, tears welling. "You're here," she murmured. "All of you." The moment was hers, untainted by the past. She closed the journal, her entries now a tapestry of hope and grit. The boys were her secret, her strength, her reason to rise each morning. Claire didn't know how she'd face the months ahead, the birth, the years beyond, but she knew she'd do it alone, with a fire Ethan could never extinguish. The cottage's walls held her resolve, its drafty corners warmed by her will. Claire stood, her silhouette framed against the snow-lit window, and made a vow. These boys would know love, not abandonment. They'd know her, not the lies that had tried to erase her. She tucked the ultrasound images into the journal, a sacred archive of what was to come. The world outside could wait. For now, Claire Dawson was a mother, and that was enough. The Vermont spring was a reluctant guest, its warmth battling the stubborn chill that clung to Claire Dawson's cottage. At 34, she carried the weight of her quintuplet pregnancy like a mountain, her body a battlefield of swelling limbs and relentless fatigue. The 29th week arrived with a deceptive calm, the air heavy with the scent of thawing earth. Claire sat at her kitchen table, a mug of tea cooling untouched, her journal open to a half-finished entry. Her belly, taut and monumental, pressed against the table's edge, a constant reminder of the 5 lives she guarded. She traced the names she'd chosen: Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, Sam, each a vow etched in ink and resolve. In the dead of night, pain struck like lightning. A sharp cramp seized Claire, doubling her over as a warm rush soaked her nightgown. Panic flared, but she moved with a clarity born of necessity. Her hands shook as she dialed Martha, her neighbor, whose voice cut through the haze. "I'm coming, honey. Hold on." The ambulance's red lights painted the cottage walls, and Claire was whisked to the hospital, the world a blur of sirens and sterile white. In the delivery room, chaos reigned. Monitors beeped erratically, nurses barked orders, and Claire's vision swam as her blood pressure plummeted. She clung to consciousness, her mind a litany of her son's names, a prayer against the void. The doctors, faces masked but eyes urgent, worked to save her and the boys. One by one, 5 fragile cries pierced the din, each a miracle pulled from the brink. Claire awoke in recovery, her body a map of bruises and exhaustion. The room was dim, the hum of machines a soft undertone. A nurse, her badge reading Sarah, approached with a gentle smile. "They're fighters, Ms. Dawson. All 5 are in the NICU, stable but small." She handed Claire a Polaroid, the boys' tiny forms swaddled in tubes and monitors. Claire's fingers trembled as she studied their faces, each barely the size of her palm. Tears fell, not from sorrow, but from a fierce primal relief. They were here, alive, hers. She whispered their names, sealing the moment, her voice a thread connecting her to them across the hospital's sterile halls. Days later, Claire shuffled to the NICU, her hospital gown trailing, an IV pole her reluctant companion. The incubators glowed, each cradling a son. Noah, the eldest, kicked feebly, his eyes shut tight. Eli's chest rose with stubborn rhythm. Ben lay still, a quiet warrior. Luke's fingers curled as if grasping the world. Sam, the smallest, fought for every breath. Claire pressed her hand to the glass, her heart a drumbeat of love and fear. She couldn't hold them yet, but she spoke to them, her voice low and steady. "You're enough," she said, "and I'm right here." The hospital's peace was shattered by a local reporter's article. Vermont mother's miracle quintuplets defy odds. The story, meant as a feel-good piece, spread like wildfire, drawing camera crews to Brattleboro. Claire, still bedridden, watched in horror as news vans parked outside the hospital. Her anonymity, her shield against Ethan's threats, was crumbling. She refused interviews, her voice firm despite her frailty. "No photos, no statements," she told a nurse, who nodded with understanding. But the media was relentless, their questions a buzz of intrusion. Who's the father? How will she cope? Claire's fear wasn't just for herself, it was for her boys, who deserved a life free from scandal. Discharged after a week, Claire returned to the cottage, its familiar creaks a small comfort. The financial strain was a noose tightening daily. The divorce settlement, once a lifeline, was devoured by medical bills and prenatal care. She sold her mother's old jewelry, each piece a pang of loss, to cover formula and diapers. Martha, ever steadfast, arrived with casseroles and a fierce protectiveness, shooing reporters from Claire's doorstep. "They're vultures," she muttered, handing Claire a plate of cornbread. Claire managed a weak smile, grateful for the woman who'd become her anchor. The NICU became Claire's second home, her days measured in visits to her sons. She memorized their progress. Noah's first ounce gained, Eli's stronger lungs, Ben's steady heart rate, Luke's open eyes, Sam's fragile grip on her finger. Each milestone was a victory, each setback a test. She navigated this new world alone, her parents' absence a quiet ache, her old friends distant echoes from a life she left behind. The media frenzy faded, but the damage lingered. Her name was out there, a beacon for anyone who might connect her to Ethan. One sleepless night, Claire sat by the cottage's hearth, the fire's glow casting shadows on the walls. Her laptop, a relic from her teaching days, hummed to life. She opened a blank page and began to write, her words raw and unfiltered. To the world, I'm a headline. To my boys, I'm everything. This is our story. She titled the blog Rising Five, a nod to the stars she'd named her sons after. First post poured out, her fear, her love, her refusal to break. She hesitated, then hit publish, sending her truth into the void. By morning, comments flooded in, strangers' voices echoing her pain. You're not alone. Keep going. A single mother in Ohio shared her own story of betrayal. A teacher in Texas offered to send baby clothes. Claire read each message, her throat tight, a spark of connection kindling within her. The blog was a lifeline, but it was also a risk. Claire wrote anonymously, masking details that could lead to Ethan. She checked her email obsessively, fearing his lawyer's reach, but no threats came. Instead, a package arrived, a box of onesies from a woman in Florida, a note tucked inside, "For your stars. You're stronger than you know." Claire clutched the note, her resolve deepening. She wasn't just surviving, she was building something, a foundation for her boys, brick by fragile brick. As spring bloomed, Claire stood at the NICU, watching her sons grow stronger. Noah's eyes followed her now. Eli's cries grew bold. Ben's calm held steady. Luke's kicks gained force, and Sam's breaths came easier. She leaned against the incubator, her journal tucked under her arm, its pages filled with promises. "We'll rise," she whispered, her voice a beacon in the sterile quiet. The storm had birthed them, but Claire would shape their dawn. The Vermont summer draped Claire Dawson's cottage in a golden haze, the air thick with the hum of cicadas and the scent of wildflowers. At 34, Claire navigated her new reality as a mother of five, her days a whirlwind of NICU visits and sleepless nights. The boys, Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, and Sam, were home now, their incubators replaced by cribs that crowded the small living room. Each cry, each tiny hand grasping hers, anchored Claire to a purpose fiercer than any she'd known. Yet the weight of her solitude pressed hard, her finances a fraying thread, her future a question mark. The blog Rising Five, born in a moment of raw courage, had sparked a flicker of hope, its words resonating with strangers across the country. One morning, as Claire balanced a bottle in one hand and a diaper in the other, a knock rattled the cottage door. She opened it to find a cardboard box, no return address, filled with tiny socks, onesies, and a handwritten note. "For your boys, from a mom who's been there. You're not alone." Claire's breath caught, her fingers tracing the stranger's words. She set the box beside others that had arrived. Blankets from a nurse in Chicago, picture books from a teacher in Atlanta. The blog's reach had grown, its comments section a tapestry of encouragement from women who saw their scars in Claire's story. She read their messages late at night, the laptop's glow a beacon in the dark, their voices stitching together a community she hadn't dared imagine. Claire's days were a delicate dance. Noah, serious and watchful, would pat his brothers' heads with a toddler's solemnity. Eli, a bundle of mischief, giggled as he toppled block towers. Ben, quiet and curious, chewed on board books, his eyes tracking the pages. Luke smeared mashed peas across his tray, a budding artist's chaos. Sam, clingy and sensitive, nestled against Claire's chest, his warmth a constant comfort. She marveled at their differences, each boy a distinct melody in the symphony of her life. But the demands were relentless. Feedings every 2 hours, endless laundry, doctor's appointments for preterm checkups. Martha, her neighbor, became a steady presence, brewing coffee and rocking a fussy Eli so Claire could shower. "You're doing the impossible," Martha said one evening, her eyes crinkling. Claire nodded, too tired to speak, but grateful for the woman who'd become her family. The blog evolved into a lifeline. Claire's posts, written in stolen moments, wove tales of joy and exhaustion. Noah's first smile, Luke's fascination with colors, Sam's need for her touch. Readers responded with more than words. A single mother in Oregon sent a high chair, its wood-worn but sturdy. A librarian in Texas mailed a crate of children's books, each inscribed with a note for the boys. Claire's inbox overflowed with stories, women left by partners, widowed, or simply lost, finding solace in her honesty. One comment from a nurse named Rachel stood out. Your boys are proof that love can rebuild what betrayal breaks. Claire printed it, taping it above her desk, a reminder of the strength she was forging. As fall painted the hills in crimson and gold, Claire planned the boys' first birthday. The cottage, cramped but warm, buzzed with anticipation. She baked a lopsided cake, its frosting smudged by her unsteady hands, and strung paper stars above the cribs. Martha arrived with a pot of chili and a gift, 5 tiny hats knitted by her book club. The celebration was small, just Claire, Martha, and the boys, but it felt vast. Noah clapped as Claire lit a single candle. Eli smeared icing on his nose. Ben stared at the flame. Luke babbled, and Sam giggled in her lap. She sang off-key, her voice cracking with emotion, and made a silent wish. Let them know they're enough. The moment was hers, untainted by the past, a milestone carved from her resilience. The blog's growth sparked an idea. Claire saw the women reaching out, mothers like her, navigating betrayal and survival, and envisioned something bigger. She launched New Roots for Mothers, a nonprofit to support single parents with resources, workshops, and hope. In the cottage's dim kitchen, she recorded her first webinar, her voice steady despite the chaos of 5 toddlers napping nearby. Titled Starting Over, it covered budgeting, emotional healing, and parenting alone. She wore no makeup, her hair in a messy bun, her authenticity, her strength. The video went live, and within days, registrations poured in. A woman in Florida offered to design a logo. A teacher in Ohio volunteered to moderate forms. Claire's vision took root, her solitude giving way to a network of allies. The financial strain eased slightly. Donations trickled in, small sums from readers, enough to cover a month's groceries or a doctor's visit. Claire budgeted fiercely, every dollar a battle won. She sold her old textbooks, their margins filled with her notes, to buy a secondhand stroller for the boys. The cottage's walls, once bare, now held drawings from readers' children, a collage of connection. One package from a mother in Georgia included a quilt stitched with 5 stars, each boy's initial embroidered in the center. Claire draped it over the crib, her eyes stinging. These strangers, bound by shared pain, were her village, their kindness a shield against the world's indifference. As winter loomed, Claire stood at the cottage's window, watching snow dust the fields. The boys slept, their breaths a soft chorus. She opened her laptop, the New Roots website now live, its pages outlining workshops and support groups. The first event, a virtual panel on financial independence, had drawn hundreds. Claire's hands hovered over the keyboard, her next post half written. We're not just surviving, we're building. She glanced at the boys, their cribs a constellation of dreams, and felt a shift. The loneliness that had defined her was fading, replaced by a community she'd forged from her own words. Claire closed the laptop and knelt beside Noah's crib, brushing his curls. Eli snored, Ben clutched a book. Luke's fingers twitched, and Sam's face softened in sleep. They were her stars, her reason, her strength. She rose, her silhouette steady against the snow-lit window, and whispered a promise to the night. We'll keep rising, together. The cottage held her words, its warmth a testament to the life she was building, one connection at a time. The Vermont autumn blazed with crimson and amber, casting a warm glow over Claire Dawson's cottage, now a bustling haven for her 5-year-old sons. At 39, Claire had transformed her solitude into a beacon, her life a testament to resilience. The boys, Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, and Sam, filled the small home with chaos and joy, their laughter a melody against the creak of floorboards. Noah, ever the leader, marshaled his brothers into line for school. Eli's boundless energy left trails of scattered toys. Ben's quiet intensity shone through his love of stories. Luke's paint-splattered hands turned every surface into a canvas. Sam, still tender, shadowed Claire with unwavering devotion. Her days, once defined by survival, now pulsed with purpose, driven by New Roots for Mothers, the nonprofit she'd built from her blog's humble roots. Claire stood in the kitchen, stirring oatmeal as dawn broke, her mind on an upcoming keynote in Boston. The National Early Education Conference had invited her to speak on equitable learning, a nod to her advocacy for single-parent families. The boys enrolled in Brattleboro's elementary school were set to perform with their choir at the event, a surprise arranged by their teacher. Claire glanced at the refrigerator, where a photo of the boys in matching navy blazers was pinned beside a flyer for New Roots. The organization had flourished, its Burlington Community Center offering childcare, job training, and counseling. Her memoir, 5 Stars, 1 Strength, had climbed bestseller lists, its proceeds funding scholarships for mothers in need. Claire's voice, once silenced, now resonated nationwide, her story a lifeline for women rebuilding from betrayal. The morning was a whirlwind. Noah, his brow furrowed, tied Sam's shoes with exaggerated care. Eli, giggling, flicked cereal at Ben, who sighed and buried his nose in a book. Luke, paint on his cheeks, sketched a rocket on his napkin, while Sam clung to Claire's leg, his eyes wide. "Mama, do we sing loud in Boston?" he asked. Claire knelt, brushing his curls. "As loud as your heart, baby." She herded them into the minivan, Martha waving from her porch, her promise to check the cottage a quiet comfort. The drive to Boston was a symphony of chatter and off-key songs, the boys' excitement a spark in Claire's chest. She didn't know Ethan and his wife Juliet would be there, their presence tied to her family's political clout. A collision of past and present waiting to ignite. Boston's conference center buzzed with educators, policymakers, and advocates, its marble halls echoing with ambition. Claire, in a tailored emerald dress, moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, her presence drawing nods of respect. She shook hands with organizers, her smile warm but guarded, her mind on her speech. The boys, backstage with their choir, practiced scales, their voices a distant hum. Claire reviewed her notes, her talk weaving personal triumph with policy, equitable education as a lifeline for single-parent homes. Her journey, raising 5 boys alone, building new roots, was the heart of her message. A call for systems to support, not hinder, families like hers. The auditorium filled, its lights dimming as the program began. Claire sat in the front row, her hands clasped, unaware of Ethan in the audience, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the man he'd been. Juliet, poised beside him, scanned the room with calculated calm. The choir's performance was announced, and Claire's heart lifted as her sons filed onto the stage, their blazers slightly rumpled. Noah stood tall, his chin high. Eli waved wildly, nearly toppling his neighbor. Ben's eyes darted nervously. Luke grinned, paint still on his fingers. Sam clutched a stuffed bear, his voice soft but clear. Their song, a bright medley of folk tunes, filled the hall, their harmony raw but radiant. Claire beamed, her pride a quiet fire. Ethan, seated rows back, froze. The boys' faces, his eyes, his jawline, struck him like a revelation. His breath caught, the world narrowing to their voices, their presence a mirror of his features. Juliet's hand tightened on his arm, her whisper sharp. "Is that?" He didn't answer, his mind reeling. Claire, oblivious, clapped as the boys bowed, their giggles echoing. The MC introduced her, and she took the stage, her stride steady, her voice clear. "Education isn't just a system," she began, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "It's a promise to every child, especially those whose families fight to rise." She spoke of her sons, their dreams, and the mothers she served through New Roots, her words weaving hope with grit. The audience leaned in, captivated, Ethan among them, his shock giving way to a hollow ache. Claire's speech soared, her poise unshaken by the eyes on her, including those of the man who'd once dismantled her world. She shared data, how single-parent households face systemic barriers, then softened, her voice intimate. "My boys taught me that strength isn't in what you endure, but in what you build." The crowd erupted, a standing ovation washing over her. She stepped off stage, her heart full, unaware of Ethan's gaze, his face a map of regret and recognition. Backstage, she hugged her sons, Noah's nod solemn, Eli's hug fierce, Ben's smile shy, Luke's chatter endless, Sam's arms tight around her neck. "You were stars," she whispered, their warmth grounding her. As the conference broke for intermission, Ethan lingered, his mind a storm. Juliet, sensing the shift, pulled him aside, her voice low and venomous. This could ruin us. You need to act. Custody. Control the story. Her words, laced with her family's political instincts, pressed him to erase the threat to their image. Ethan's jaw tightened, his silence a rebellion brewing. He watched Claire across the room, laughing with an organizer, her ease a stark contrast to his turmoil. The boys, now eating cookies backstage, were no longer abstractions, but living proof of his failure. He typed an email on his phone, his fingers hesitant. Claire, we need to talk. I saw them. I'm sorry. He didn't send it, not yet, but the words burned, a step toward a reckoning he couldn't avoid. Claire, gathering the boys' coats, felt a prickle of unease, as if the air had shifted. She brushed it off, focusing on Sam's sticky hands and Luke's proud recounting of their song. The conference was a triumph, New Roots gaining allies, her memoir sparking offers from publishers for a second book. She loaded the boys into the van, their chatter a balm. As she drove back to Vermont, the Boston skyline fading, Claire didn't know Ethan's world was cracking, his denial giving way to a need to know the sons he'd rejected. She sang with her boys, her voice steady, her heart a fortress built for them alone. The Vermont winter painted Claire Dawson's cottage in soft whites, the snow muffling the world outside while amplifying the vibrant chaos within. At 39, Claire stood at the heart of a life she'd forged from resilience. Her 5-year-old sons, Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, and Sam, her constellation of purpose. The Boston conference, where her boys' choir performance had unknowingly confronted their father Ethan with his past, had shifted something intangible. Claire sensed it, a ripple in the air, though she couldn't name it. Her focus remained on New Roots for Mothers, her nonprofit now a beacon for single parents, and on her sons, whose laughter filled the cottage's creaking walls. Yet Ethan's presence lingered, a shadow she hadn't invited. 2 days after the conference, Claire sat at a Boston cafe, its windows fogged with morning chill. She'd agreed to meet Ethan, his email sent hours after he'd seen their sons, pleading for a conversation. Her emerald scarf, a gift from Martha, was knotted tightly, a shield against the vulnerability of facing him. Ethan arrived, his tailored coat dusted with snow, his face rawer than she remembered, stripped of the arrogance that once defined him. He slid into the booth, his hands fidgeting with a coffee cup. Claire, he began, his voice low. I saw them. Our boys. I didn't know. She met his gaze, her expression unyielding. You didn't want to know, she said, her tone measured but sharp. You made that clear. Ethan's shoulders sagged, his eyes tracing the table's grain. I was wrong, selfish. I let Juliet's world, her family's world, swallow me. But seeing them, it broke something open. Claire's fingers tightened around her mug, her heart a fortress. This isn't about you, Ethan. It's about them. Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, Sam. They're not your redemption story. He nodded, swallowing hard. I want to know them, Claire. Not to fix my mistakes, but to be their father. I'll do whatever you ask. Therapy, boundaries, anything. She studied him, searching for the man who'd shattered her. He was gone, replaced by someone unsteady, humbled. If we do this, she said, it's slow, supervised, with a family counselor. They're old enough to feel betrayal, and I won't let you hurt them. Ethan agreed, his relief palpable, though Claire's trust remained a distant star. Back in Vermont, tension brewed beyond Claire's control. Juliet, Ethan's wife, had cornered him after the conference, her voice a hiss of political calculation. Those kids are a liability, she'd said, her eyes cold. Sue for custody, spin it as your noble return. My family can't afford a scandal. Ethan, shaken by his sons' faces, resisted, his defiance a crack in their polished facade. Juliet's threats escalated, her family's influence a looming hammer. Ethan, torn between guilt and ambition, made a choice. He drafted a public statement, his hands trembling as he typed, I am the father of Claire Dawson's 5 sons. I failed them, and I'm committed to making it right. He sent it to a major news outlet, the words detonating across headlines by morning. Claire woke to her phone buzzing, notifications flooding from New Roots supporters and reporters. The statement, raw and unfiltered, had upended Ethan's carefully curated image. The Harper family, furious at the breach, severed ties, their political machine abandoning him. Claire, reading the news at her kitchen table, felt a storm of emotions. Anger at Ethan's unilateral move, relief at his honesty, fear for her boy's exposure. Noah, coloring nearby, looked up. "Mama, why's our name on your phone?" Claire knelt, her voice steady. "Someone's talking about us, sweetheart, but we're okay." She shielded them, but the questions were coming, their innocence a fragile shield. The media descended, cameras staking out the cottage until Martha, fierce as ever, chased them off with a broom. Claire issued a brief statement through New Roots. "My sons and I ask for privacy as we navigate this moment." Her community rallied, emails pouring in from mothers who'd followed her journey. A single parent in Seattle wrote, "You've carried us, now we carry you." Another in Miami sent a care package of books and crayons for the boys. Claire's resolve deepened, her nonprofit a fortress against the chaos. She contacted a family counselor, Dr. Lena Hayes, whose calm expertise promised a path forward. "We'll introduce Ethan carefully," Dr. Hayes said, her voice a balm. "The boy's trust comes first." Claire prepared her sons, her words simple but honest. "There's a man who wants to meet you," she told them, gathered on the cottage's rug. "He's important to me, and we'll see him with someone who helps us talk." Noah's eyes narrowed, sensing more. Eli asked if the man liked soccer. Ben nodded quietly. Luke wondered if he'd bring paint. Sam hugged her tighter. Claire's heart ached, but she held firm, her love their anchor. The first meeting was set, a neutral park with Dr. Hayes present, and Ethan was instructed to be a friend, not a father, until the boys were ready. Ethan's statement had consequences. Reporters dug into Claire's past, but New Roots supporters countered with stories of her impact, drowning out the gossip. The boys, oblivious to the headlines, thrived in their routine: school, play, bedtime stories. Claire read to them each night, her voice weaving tales of dragons and heroes, her hands brushing their curls. One evening, as snow fell, she wrote a blog post. "Forgiveness isn't erasure. It's choosing my son's peace over my pain." The post went viral, her words a lighthouse for women navigating their wounds. Comments flooded in, one from a mother in Denver. "You're teaching us to rise, even now." Claire stood at the cottage's window, the boys asleep, their breaths a soft rhythm. The world outside churned, but her home was a sanctuary, its walls lined with Luke's drawings and Ben's books. She thought of Ethan, his promise to follow her rules, his life now untethered from the Harper's grip. She didn't trust him fully, but she believed in her boy's strength, in the life she'd built. Claire's fingers traced the quilt on the couch, its 5 embroidered stars a reminder of her vow. She wasn't just their mother, she was their shield, their guide, their home. The past had roared back, but Claire Dawson would face it, her eyes fixed on the stars she'd named. The Vermont spring unfurled in tender greens, bathing Claire Dawson's cottage in a light that felt like renewal. At 39, Claire stood as a pillar of resilience, her life a tapestry woven from love for her 5-year-old sons, Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, and Sam, and her mission through New Roots for Mothers. The tumult of Ethan's public admission had settled, leaving a fragile bridge between her boys and their father, built on cautious steps and Claire's unwavering vigilance. Her days brimmed with the boys' boundless energy and the growth of her nonprofit, now expanding with educational programs for orphan children. Yet as the boys prepared for their kindergarten graduation, Claire sensed a new chapter dawning, one defined not by reconciliation, but by the steady pulse of a family she'd crafted from her strength. The cottage buzzed with morning chaos. Noah, ever the organizer, sorted backpacks with military precision, his brow furrowed as he checked Sam's crayons. Eli, a whirlwind, darted past, his soccer ball bouncing off the wall, earning a sigh from Ben, who clutched a worn copy of Charlotte's Web. Luke, paint smudged on his elbows, sketched a graduation cap on scrap paper, while Sam, clinging to Claire's skirt, whispered, "Mama, will you clap loud?" Claire, stirring pancake batter, knelt to kiss his forehead. Louder than thunder, sweet boy. Her heart swelled, each son a distinct light in her constellation, their growth a testament to her unyielding devotion. Claire's focus is split between motherhood and new roots. The nonprofit's latest initiative, a literacy program for foster children, had launched in 3 states, its success drawing invitations to speak at national forums. She declined a lucrative offer to return to academia, her priorities rooted in her sons and the mothers she served. At night, after bedtime stories, Claire worked at her desk, her laptop aglow with grant proposals and emails from allies. A recent message from a donor in Chicago praised her. "Your boys are proof that love builds legacies." She pinned it beside Luke's latest drawing, a reminder of the impact she'd sown. Ethan's integration into the boys' lives was deliberate, guided by Dr. Lena Hayes, the family counselor. He'd attended their soccer practice, introduced as Mama's friend, his presence a quiet experiment. Claire watched closely, her instincts sharp. Noah, perceptive, studied Ethan with a guarded gaze. Eli, eager for playmates, kicked a ball his way. Ben hung back, observing. Luke offered a crayon, curious. Sam stayed near Claire, his trust slower to bloom. Ethan, humbled by their vibrancy, followed Claire's rules. No grand gestures, no promises, just consistency. He asked about their favorite games, listened to Noah's rules for tag, and marveled at Luke's art, his awe tinged with regret. Claire, though wary, saw his effort, a far cry from the man who'd once dismissed her. The kindergarten graduation arrived, a milestone bathed in June's golden warmth. Brattleboro's elementary school auditorium hummed with families, its stage adorned with paper flowers. Claire, in a navy dress that hugged her frame, sat in the 3rd row, her hands clasped to steady her pride. Ethan, a row behind, wore a simple sweater, his usual polish softened. The boys in tiny caps and gowns filed on stage, their faces alight. Noah led, his posture proud. Eli tripped, then grinned. Ben adjusted his glasses, solemn. Luke waved, paint on his sleeve. Sam clutched Noah's hand, shy but beaming. They sang a song about growing tall, their voices a bright thread weaving through the crowd. Claire's eyes glistened, her applause fierce, while Ethan, silent, wiped a tear, his heart caught in their harmony. The ceremony's peak came with awards. Noah received a leadership badge, his nod to Claire a quiet vow. Eli earned a joyful spirit certificate, his giggle echoing. Ben was honored for reading, his shy smile rare and radiant. Luke got an art award, his hands waving proudly. Sam, for kindness, blushed as he hugged his teacher. Claire stood, her cheers a lighthouse, while Ethan clapped, his face a mix of wonder and loss. The boys' performance, a skit about friendship, showcased their quirks. Noah directed, Eli improvised, Ben recited lines, Luke painted props, and Sam shone as a gentle star. The audience roared and Claire's heart soared, her son's brilliance her greatest triumph. Afterward, the school lawn buzzed with families. Claire knelt, hugging her boys, their caps askew. "You made today magic," she said, her voice thick. Noah organized a game of chase. Eli tackled Ben. Luke sketched the scene in his mind, and Sam held her hand, content. Ethan approached, hesitant, offering juice boxes. "They're incredible," he said, his voice soft. Claire nodded, her gaze steady. "They are, and they're mine." He didn't argue, his role still peripheral, a guest in their orbit. The boys, curious but carefree, accepted his presence, their joy unburdened by his past. Claire's work with New Roots pressed forward. She finalized a partnership with a national literacy nonprofit, her vision of empowered mothers and thriving children taking shape. The boys' graduation marked a pivot, their growth a mirror of her own. She wrote a blog post that night, her words a quiet anthem. "My sons don't need a perfect family, just a fierce one." Readers responded, one mother in Texas writing, "You've shown us how to build from love." Claire's legacy, once a whisper, was now a chorus, her cottage a hub of dreams. As dusk fell, Claire stood on the lawn, watching her sons play. Noah refereed, Eli sprinted, Ben read under a tree, Luke drew in the dirt, and Sam leaned against her. Ethan lingered nearby, his presence a thread, not a chain. Claire didn't forgive him, not fully, but she chose peace for her boy's sake. They deserved a future free from her scars, a life where love, not loss, defined them. She lifted Sam, his giggle a spark, and joined the game, her laughter blending with theirs. Cottage loomed behind, its windows aglow, a sanctuary she'd built from ashes. Claire Dawson, mother, advocate, survivor, ran with her stars, their light her guide, their future her vow. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey through Rising Five, a story of resilience. Claire Dawson's story of love, betrayal, and unbreakable strength reminds us that from the ashes of hardship, new beginnings can shine. We hope her courage and the light of her five stars, Noah, Eli, Ben, Luke, and Sam, inspired you as much as it did us. What moved you most? Did Claire's resilience spark a memory or a dream of your own? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your voice. Your support fuels our storytelling, so please subscribe for more tales of triumph and heart. Until next time, keep rising, keep loving, and we'll meet again soon with another story to stir your soul. Thank you and take care.